If I was bow hunting for the very first time, here's the 5 things that I would put all of my attention into. My first tip would be to play the wind. And this is something that it takes a lot of time to work at. Thermals change, wind directions change, weather patterns change the wind. But if you learn to play the wind, it'll dramatically increase your odds of seeing deer and getting them in bow range right away. There's so many products out there that claim to eliminate this. And I think a lot of them really do help mitigate your scent. But it's kind of like what they said in sex ed. The only safe sex is no sex, okay? In the same way, if you don't want to get busted by a deer with their nose, the only way to do that is to have the wind blowing from them to you every time. Now, that's really hard to do in the woods. A lot of things change, but if you can do that for most deer for each setup, that's a really great way to start. I remember I learned a really hard lesson on this one time. There was a guy that killed a big deer, biggest deer I've ever seen. It was 232 inches, had a huge foot-long drop tine, massive deer. And the guy had terrible hygiene. He didn't shower very often. He had a lot of pets that lived in his house, didn't ever wash his hunting stuff. And I remember I couldn't sit in a photo with him more than a few seconds. We got in close to his deer, and he smelled so bad that you couldn't sit next to him. And he killed that deer at 8 yards with a recurve, 230-inch buck. And I knew right then that if you can keep the wind in your favor, it doesn't matter how bad you smell. You can smell like Tarzan, and you're going to be able to have chances at deer, but you've got to keep the wind in your favor. Step number 2 is know your equipment and practice. I'd really recommend you find a great bow shop and go into this with no ego. Find a bow that fits you no matter where you're at. You don't have to pull 80 pounds. You don't have to shoot a 600 grain arrow. You don't have to do any of that stuff. You do need to be accurate though. And accuracy comes from a bow that fits you, from equipment that you're comfortable with, and practicing. So find a good bow shop that'll set you up well. You don't have to spend a ton of money. You don't have to do all the fancy gadgets, but just start with a bow that fits you. It's very important. And then practice. Really try to work on your form. Don't pay a whole lot of attention to making perfect shots right now. What you need in the beginning is perfect form. So go get a bow that fits you, learn it, find a bow shop you like, know your equipment, and practice. Number 3 is pay attention to the woods. We live in a day and age, and I'm just as guilty of this as anybody, where there's a million distractions. And it's so easy that when the woods are calm and nothing's going on, to scroll on your phone, to check Instagram, to check your email, to handle work. It's almost impossible to get away from that stuff these days. But I can't tell you the amount of times that I have just been paying attention, and I might see a buck slip through at 80 yards. And just see him for a split second. And that gives me the information, A, that he's there, B, what he's doing, what time of day he's doing it, and then maybe I can move my stand, or maybe it just gives me hope and a little bit of encouragement to keep hunting hard the next day. But if my face is buried in my phone and I don't miss that deer moving through at a distance, you never even know he's there. A lot of times, squirrels, blue jays, coyotes, other deer, a lot of times this will give you clues as to what's going on. When you're scouting, you really got to pay attention. So as much as you can, put the phone away and really try to pay attention to the woods. This also helps me in my art career. You know, I make a living by paying attention to deer behavior, to the backgrounds, to the sights and smells and sounds of the woods. They help me convey that stuff in my art. And I believe that in order to do authentic wildlife art, you've really got to understand the habitat that they live in. And paying attention to the woods oftentimes is when I find the little bitty nuggets of inspiration that help me do new work. Number 4 is to know a deer's anatomy. We've done a lot of videos you can see in the link below that unpack my art and illustrations and help you understand deer anatomy. But you really need to know where to avoid, mainly the shoulder. You need to avoid some of the really hard, bad angles, long shots, and you really need at first to stick within your effective range and really know what you're shooting at and what's behind that hide when you shoot there. One thing you really want to do is you want to have some wins early to get you going in bow hunting. And if you wound a bunch of deer or you don't find them, you're going to get discouraged. You're going to start doubting yourself and you don't want to get there. So really try to get some chip shots early, some really early wins. Take some good broadside shots, some quartering shots, and know where to aim within that. That's going to help give you the confidence to keep going and taking on bigger challenges as you go. And number 5, be patient after the shot. So many young bow hunters, including myself, have been terribly guilty of this and still have to fight it to this day. But they shoot and they want to run in after the deer and just go find it. We gotta find the arrow. We gotta look for blood. We gotta walk up on my deer. We gotta take pictures. We gotta do all that stuff. And you can really get yourself in a bad spot. So be patient after the shot. Try to calm down. Try to see where that deer disappeared last, and mark something, whether it's a tree or a bush where you last saw that deer. That'll get you going on the right track, the right blood trail. And if you lose blood, you can always go to that spot you last saw the deer and try to find it there. When you rush deer, if you've made a marginal hit, most deer are going to die within a couple hundred yards of your stand if you just let them go. You just slip out of that. And if there's good cover nearby, they'll bed down and you'll find them there. But if you push them, chances are they're going to get up. They might not be bleeding much, and they're going to run further and faster than they would if you would just let them go. So slip down, get your arrow, back out, be patient, take your time, and recognize that bumping that deer out of its first bed is the worst thing that can happen. And again, you want some wins early. You want to have some success early to keep going that way. So we've done a bunch of videos for that too that use my art and some unique visuals we've created for that. So be sure to check those out in the link below as well. So that's it. That's my top 5 tips for a beginning bow hunter. And again, I really want to encourage you. Bow hunting is hard. You're setting yourself up with a challenge from the get-go. So it's going to be hard. There's going to be challenges. You've got an opportunity to learn a lot, but I can tell you, you're going to love it. You're going to really enjoy the growth process as you go. And to assist you in that process, we've done some videos taking my art and illustrations and unpacking a lot of those. So check those out below. Anything from how to score a deer to what makes a non-typical rack to whitetail anatomy, what to do after each shot you might encounter, all kinds of stuff. So I really want to give you some encouragement. Check out that work on our YouTube channel. If you want to buy my prints, you can see those at ryankirby.com. But the number one thing you've got to do is just stick with it. It's a great way to live your best life and to learn challenges and enjoy the outdoors. So stick with bow hunting. You won't regret it.